What happens when you give a media personality and a sex therapist a podcast? You get Spill the Tea, a bold, unfiltered space where no topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the messy, hilarious, and heartbreaking realities of life. Will Nash and Maria Orrego serve up real talk with expert insight, hot takes, and a whole lot of tea.
It's easier to friend zone someone when you're younger, and when you're a bit older, it's like people actually ask you directly the question. Whereas when you're young, everyone just forgets about it and just assumes that that's
Moves
something.
along, right?
Yeah, it
And
feels
it's also different now because before the internet, people spent so much time online, you could probably get away with friend zoning someone a lot easier. Whereas now, even if you don't have that discussion with that person in person, they can send you a DM on Instagram or whatever, right?
Yeah, there's so much more accessibility to that. Yeah. Have you ever been friend zoned, like actually officially friend zoned by someone?
It's funny because going into this episode, I was trying to think back to some of my personal experiences about being friend zoned. I feel for the most part, I've been the one who has been doing the friend zoning.
Oh, okay. Do tell.
Well, I just mean, when someone is not necessarily asking you out, but from the way that you're interacting with them, this is specifically in the online world, not so much in person, if I'm being honest with you, when someone will send you, it's like that whole thing of like, oh, post new photo, and then you get some messages, right? I think many of us who post on social media have, been there. I don't mean that in a shallow or a vain way. I just think that's human nature. And trying to step away from that conversation because I might really like that person as a friend. Or honestly, in some cases, it's been liking someone. When I say liking, I mean just appreciating their connection. Even as an acquaintance, but I just don't see myself going out with that person or going on a date with that person, let alone pursuing a relationship with that person. I don't know the other way around if I feel like I've been friend zoned a lot, though. I think that if I think back to previous relationships or dating experiences, I think that maybe some of my mistakes were not acknowledging and addressing the status of what we were earlier.
Oh, interesting. Like not labeling or having that conversation earlier on, and so that it wouldn't evolve into something awkward. Okay, yeah, I
Although,
can
you know what? I'm actually, as I say this out loud, and I couldn't think of this when I was thinking about it going into the episode, I remember an instance where I was living in Toronto. I was really interested in this guy. We had been out to the movies. We had been out a couple of times. We hadn't again established what the relationship was. And I remember he had invited me over to his condo, and I didn't necessarily know what I was walking into. It was the summer. He had like a rooftop patio, so we had like a barbecue up there, and I thought that maybe it was just going to be us. So it's funny. I kind of forgot about this, right? And then I had went up there, and then later on, like a couple of friends kept on coming throughout the night, and then it was clear to me that this other guy that was there, he was interested in him.
Oh no, forgotten or completely blocked out of your memory to not relive that.
Clearly not forgotten, clearly not completely forgotten, but I remembered like leaving that night. I remember trying to find like that first exit, like how can I get out of here as soon as I possibly can. Yeah, so that did happen. So I have been, because that would be the definition of being friend zoned, right?
A little bit, yeah, for sure. It's basically when someone decides that they're not romantically interested in you and they like very clearly set friend zone boundaries of you are my friend. It's kind of like when people start calling each other like, "Oh, you're like a brother to me," or "You're like a sister to me, and this is how I love you." I was actually put in the friend zone by accident by someone.
Oh,
Yeah. So it was someone I was seeing, and we like when it's like starts getting flirty and it starts getting like a little bit spicier and you don't really know where it's going, but no one's really talking about it
Mhm.
out loud yet. And then during a coffee one random evening, he said something that like came across as if like he was trying to tell me that like we were just really great friends that got along really well. And so I took that as a sign. I was like, okay, yeah, I got the message, friend zoned, thank you. And I backed off completely. And a year later, he told me that he was confused as to why I backed off and that he didn't understand what was going on. And I told him the conversation. He's like, that is not what I meant at all. I was so
Wow.
into you. I wanted to date you, but then you backed off after that date or like that coffee that we had. And so, yeah, he accidentally friend zoned me. We never dated after that. Like, for me, that was over. Like, as soon as that friend zone boundary went up.
Wow. So do
But
you
that was,
look at that as he accidentally friend zoned you, or do you think you misread it?
I think both, maybe. Like,
Hmm.
I misread it. He accidentally said something that very much sounded like he was friend zoning. So, I just, as of that moment, it just drifted and we're still friends. Like, everything's fine. But it was a hilarious moment of like, oh gosh, that was a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding that happened right there. Yeah.
Do you think that when it comes to friend zoning, that it happens with everyone in every kind of relationship? Do you think that, men, straight men, I don't know, queer women, queer men, like, do you think a group of people who get friend zoned more? I don't know. I was talking to a couple people that I was going to do this episode with you, and I will say, when I mentioned it to a couple of male friends, they were like, oh my God, yeah, like I'm really curious to hear about this one because this has happened to me a lot.
Yes, I'm gonna say that like uneducated maybe
Yes.
assumption or guess here. I'm gonna say that straight men for sure get friend zoned way more than any other population.
I wonder too if, like, and again, maybe a little, we always have this conversation about generalizations, but I mean, some generalizations come from something. And it's
Mhm.
like, do you think that a lot of straight men, not all, but many of them are just very assertive? And sometimes that will lead a woman to force them into the friend zone because even if she might be interested in them, it's like, oh, okay, you know what? Like, you're just like pushing it a little bit too hard for my liking. And maybe that's what leads maybe women to put them into the friend zone. Otherwise, they might have had a chance if they would have been, confident, but just not so aggressive in their nature when they're trying to connect with someone.
I actually think that's an excellent concept. I think you're right because the aggression, all of a sudden, it's like we're friends. You come on a little bit too strong, and
Mhm.
I was trying to get to know you on more of like an emotional friendship level, and to order to see if there was something organic here. Yeah, if you push a little bit too hard, then yeah, I think unfortunately women have to kind of like put the brakes on and say, "I'm sorry, this is my boundary. You've now been friend zoned." I mean, not very many women say it out loud, but you can feel the vibe shift, right? When a woman says like, this is as far as I go in terms of this flirting and I'm putting you in this like area of my life now. Yeah, it could be aggression. It could also be that unfortunately there's a stereotype that straight men only look for women in like women friendships in order to then like develop a relationship or have sex or engage in some sort of encounter that way, right? So there is that stereotype as well. I mean, not all of it is true, but there is some truth to it that we do
Yeah.
engage in relationships that we're interested in, right? We engage in relationships with people that we're attracted to, or that we can network with, or that we can build our friendship brand with, right? We do that innately.
Okay, so you are interested in somebody. It's
Mhm.
early on. You have a history of finding yourself in the friend zone time and time again. How do you maneuver it? How do you navigate it so that you can ensure that you do not get into the friend zone this time? Because, it's something you have experience with.
I think a lot of it is too knowing what role you want to play in that person's life, right? So if you become their like their bestie or the person that they like
Mhm.
come and tell all their dating, online dating horrors to, well, then you've become a friend, right? But if you're someone that's engaging with them romantically, making them feel special, taking them on dates, buying them gifts, or like just showing them love and appreciation as a partner would, then the messaging is more clear. It's very different if I'm
Yeah.
eating a bowl of ice cream with you at 12 o'clock at night, telling you about how terrible dating is, or if we're out at a beautiful restaurant or out for a romantic walk. Like there's a difference, right? There's a
Yeah.
vibe, there's an energy that's very different.
It's a definitely different energy, and the thing is it can be hard. That being said, though, it can still be hurtful, right? Because sometimes, when you go into something or you just have interest in someone and you know what your intentions are, but you don't necessarily, especially the nerves are there, the fear of rejection. I think no matter how confident someone is in someone, the more time you've invested in someone, the more you want them to like you, right? The more you want them to invest in your relationship, however that's defined. And I think that sometimes, though, can the concept of friend zoning, okay, what I'm trying to say here, I think in situations, people will not acknowledge what they want. They're not communicating. So
Mhm.
because that person is maybe taking too long to express it, then they've almost time and time again put themselves into the friend zone. Like, what is the stage? And I'm sure it's so subjective. Like, what is the stage where you put yourself out there so that you avoid it and you skip the friend zone?
Oh my gosh, what a difficult question though, right? Because you're like asking for like when is the exact moment that
Mhm.
all moons align
Yeah.
where you can still honor the friendship, but then maybe move it forward and you don't blow everything up in your face, right? I think, again, unfortunately, I think it's a vibe and it's an energy, and you put things
Yeah.
out there and you see how people react. But I do think take people's reactions and actions and words
Hmm.
apart. Like if someone's saying they're not interested in dating, or they're not interested in dating a coworker, or they're not wanting to find someone right now, or they're not interested in X, Y, and Z, and you fill X, Y, and Z, please take their words seriously, right? Like people give hints, like you can see it. Again, it's not just, I mean, it is the energy and the vibe, but some of us are very terrible at reading the energy of the room, right? We've talked about this before, but
Yeah.
you can listen to what the person's saying. Don't just take the positives about what they say about you. Take some of the negatives and like really put them into a filter and see, is this person telling me they're not interested? Because you can save yourself a lot of heartbreak because people are telling you and dropping hints on whether or not they want to friend zone you or if they actually want to date you.
And that's the thing too, is that I think that a lot of the times we get so caught up on how we're expressing ourselves to that other person that we're not often listening to what that person has to say, because we like the sound of our own voices at times. Like, that does happen. And then you're like, wait a minute though, like, I'm expressing how I'm feeling towards this person, but have they actually ever shown any signs that they're at where I'm at, right? And I think that these are some of the things that can come back and, bite you in the ass. The other thing I'm kind of wondering, and I actually meant to bring this up a little bit earlier, is you have those relationships where you see people have known each other years before, and then maybe 10,
Mhm.
15 years down the line they reconnect. I'm imagining in those relationships, at one point maybe they thought they were friend zoned. How
Mm.
does that happen so that years later you can reconnect with someone? And I mean, you've seen it a lot in social media and whatnot, but I think that that does actually happen in real life too, where the spark can be ignited or reignited in some of those cases. Like, how do we explain that?
I think a lot of beautiful relationships and like, let's say love stories come from being friends from like childhood and then growing up together and
Mm.
experiencing life. And then maybe both of you engage in other relationships and then you end up together. There's actually tons of those beautiful love stories that exist in the world. I think there's something to say about two different types of love, right? There's the friendship love that we can develop with someone, and then there's that emotional, mental connection. There's like that depth that comes from it, right? And then years later, you develop that more like passionate love for each other. And then
Mhm.
there's the ones where you just go on a date, you feel something, right? You feel that electricity and that chemistry, and then you build from that. It just depends on where you're building from. But yes, sometimes it's a mistaken friend zone, or sometimes you saw the person in high school and you weren't all that thrilled about who they were during that time, but then they went
Don't judge us
on.
during our high school days, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll improve a little bit.
Exactly. They went on like some retreats and some self-discovery, and they took care of their emotional well-being and their physical well-being. And then they became a totally different person.
Mhm.
I think when it comes to like love, relationships, getting into the nitty-gritty of an emotional connection, it really is dependent on the two people that are in the relationship. But I do love hearing the beauty of like, we were friends when we were kids, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden we saw each other one night and we fell in love in a different way. I think that's really cute.
It's beautiful. It really, really is beautiful. Now, one of the things I wanted to bring up on this podcast episode is there was someone who wanted to remain anonymous
Mhm.
who actually listens to the Spill the Tea podcast all the time. So, because they wanted to remain anonymous, I want to say hello there. Thank you for listening. You have been listening from the beginning and actually before this. When I was working in radio, this person listened to my radio show as well. So I appreciate the follow through that takes a lot, right? It's not easy to kind of hold on to those wonderful people. And he actually had our Spill the Tea question today, which I think now is probably a good time to ask that, would you say?
Yeah, let's hear it. I love it. Also, I love that he like friend zoned you so well that he has followed you from radio to podcast. Okay, let's hear it. What's the question?
Okay, so it says, I've got strong feelings for a friend. I think we'd make a great couple as we agree on important things like politics and faith. I mean, that in itself. And I've even had a few mutual friends say that we would make sense together. She's put me in the friend zone, though. She stated she's looking for a person within a certain age range, and I'm not in it. What's your advice? I would love to know if you think I should hang in there or move on.
Oh.
That's a tough. The age range thing is interesting to me. Like that. I mean, the fact that in 2025 they are able to agree on things such as politics, which literally no person on the planet can agree on. I mean, I think that puts them like 20 steps ahead. The interesting thing is, and not that you're not entitled to have an ideal age range. We've all been on a dating app and plucked in those numbers. Um, it's he seems to be kind of stuck on that though. Like the age range seems to be the big issue, or maybe I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, I want to point out what I love about this question is that this person is pointing out important values that they have instead of she's beautiful, I think she's hot, I really like her, she's funny. Like I love that he mentioned that they have politics and faith in common and that's a common value. So like kudos to that, loving it.
Mm,
In terms of age range, I would go back to what we talked about a little bit earlier.
right.
They're telling you something, right? If they've said that there is a certain age range here, whether or not it's okay, inappropriate, not okay, doesn't matter. They're telling you something with that information, right? They are saying, I'm looking for someone within this age range. You clearly don't fit into that. I'm really sorry, but yes, you're out of my scope right now. I'm not looking for a relationship with you. However, you can also say, listen, I know I'm not in your age range, but maybe we can try something, or maybe let me at least take you out on one date and see how it goes. And after that, if you're still a hard no, we will go back to being friends and I'm okay with that. You could always like you could throw that risk out there, but you have to
Yeah.
know that it's a risk.
I do not know if this person who sent this in is older or younger than the woman that he is referring to, but I mean, maybe he's a fine wine, right? If he's the older one, it may, or maybe you can be at a certain age. Like I'm trying to be positive with this situation, trying to help this guy out. Is you I have met people who are like 10 years younger than me, and from a maturity standpoint or from an intellectual conversation standpoint, some people who are 10 years younger than me will hold a better conversation than someone who's my age.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. I don't think age has a lot to do with the people that you date, unless it's like inappropriate, like amount of time.
Oh, obviously, like let's keep it legal, right? Get those
Keep it
IDs,
legal.
right?
Let's
Yeah.
also keep it legal. And also, like, if you're like 21 dating someone in their 70s, like, still, like, while love can exist within those age ranges, you, yeah, I don't know if that's going to be like a long lasting relationship that you're going to be like fully satisfied and content with. But yeah, I think I'm reading it more as like the age range seems to be a little bit of an excuse, but if you want
Yeah.
to open the communication and challenge that, I think that's a wonderful thing to do because you're right. Age doesn't actually have anything to do with it. Maybe this relationship could be beautiful and grow. If they're already friends and they have a lot in common, then maybe there's something else that's preventing this relationship from going forward. And you have to respect that too.
You do have to respect that. I do think that, to your point, it's interesting that they have connected or at least agree on a lot of those same values that are important to the both of them. And this wasn't a superficial thing like, oh my gosh, I think this woman is just so hot and I have to, be with her. Because we've seen those questions too, right? We've seen those scenarios as well too, as to a reason why you want to be with someone. And I think that I would say just give it a shot, right? At the end of the day, see what happens. See, you're going to know really soon if you put yourself out there and she completely shuts you down. Not that rejection is ever easy for anyone, no matter if you feel like you're at the risk of being friend zoned or not. But I think that it's always worth a shot to put yourself out there. At least you know enough about her that you can find a way to hopefully at least show her a good time.
I love this. Okay, so Will saying take the risk. I would second that. However, I'm going to put an asterisk on it. Take the risk if you're willing to lose the friendship. Because that's the other thing, right? You're running a
Ooh.
risk. So like is she a friend of yours that you value and love enough to put your feelings aside and perhaps not take this risk but keep her as a friend? But if you're putting yourself out there and risking this and she says no, there is a risk that the friendship is over after this. So know the consequences and the ripple effects of this. I'm with you though. You only live once, take the risk, and the heartache might hurt or it might lead to something beautiful between the two of you, but at least you know and you're
You
not
know
living.
what, though? You raise a good point. You never know how people are going to act or react in certain situations. But I think that if someone had told me that they were interested in me and they say there was one thing they thought that we wouldn't connect on, and, maybe they thought it could be a deal breaker, but essentially I'm just going to like put it out there anyway. I couldn't imagine if we, again, assuming we're friends before this, or at least great acquaintances, I couldn't imagine like shutting them after that unless something really crazy happened. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like,
Unless it got really uncomfortable, because it could be uncomfortable, right?
right. Okay.
It
Fair
depends on
enough.
the two people and like how uncomfortable we make it. Like if you profess your like undying love and you want to marry this person, then the person's going to feel uncomfy after that, right? I
Yeah,
will
that's
say
true.
though, like let's say, okay, if I put myself in the shoes of this woman, if you're coming to me and saying,
Yeah.
the age range doesn't matter. I still want to be with you. Please take me out of friend zone. I would want that person to show me, quote unquote, why I'm wrong. So, like, prove me wrong. Prove me wrong as to why you shouldn't be in the friend zone, but keep it not cringy, if that makes sense. Because I do think that
Yeah.
sometimes when people try to get out of the friend zone and try to prove their like quote unquote devotion and love, it gets very cringy very fast. So if this person is already
Yeah.
not interested in you, then keep it classy, keep it discreet, keep it very like informed of who they are and stay away from anything like very cringe. Don't show up with like a white horse and 3,000 flowers. Like, no, don't do stuff like that. Don't go overboard.
I think that for me, like my last sip with this one is if you really feel strongly enough with this person, obviously it sounds like they're available. So you're not taking a chance and, doing this with someone who's already in a relationship, if you feel like you're 75, 80% there, which I think that you do, it's just that, because to me, it just sounds like it's that one thing that maybe is stopping him, the age difference or the age sort of restrictions on her end. I think put yourself out there, but just know that there is a chance that it might not have a happy ending. However, if you don't do it, if you don't put yourself out there respectfully, then I think you might always wonder what it could have been. And you might really regret that later on down the line. And maybe, maybe this is the hopeful romantic in me, but maybe it could turn into something beautiful. Or maybe it could, even if it doesn't, maybe it will enhance your friendship.
Yeah, I fully agree. Yes, you totally took the last sip out of my mouth. I fully agree with you. Take the risk, take the challenge. Know that there's consequences if it goes one way or the other. But at the same time, yeah, you don't know. It could become something beautiful, or at least you know enough to answer the other side of your question. Do you hang in there or do you move on? You won't know what to do unless you know what she's actually thinking about you. And I mean, based on my personal experience, you don't want to be accidentally friend zoned.
Yeah, and, we've all been there. I think that most of us, especially at this point in our adult lives, if you were listening to the podcast right now and you're, consider yourself an adult, you've probably been on both sides of the fence, and, either side is not necessarily fun. And yeah, I just want to say to that person who sent that question in, thank you so much for sending that in. And if you're listening right now and you're like, oh, I want to ask you something completely unrelated to this, and maybe you'll answer on a future episode of the Spill the Tea pod, we absolutely will, whether it ends up in one of our podcast episodes or whether we make it into an Instagram story or another form of content. You can send us a DM on Instagram at the Spill the Tea pod. We'll answer every DM that comes in. And I just want to give an extra special shout out to anyone who has been listening over the last while since we launched this podcast earlier this year. We're starting to feel the love because, it takes a lot of work kind of behind the scenes to make all this happen. So we appreciate you listening and we love your feedback. We are here for all of the feedback. Even if you don't like something that we say, that's okay. You can let us know that too. We greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate that.
We do. Yes. Thank you so much for listening.
Well, you know what? Give us that 5-star rating so we can have more people hearing the Spill the Tea podcast, and then hit subscribe, and then you'll get the notification when a new episode drops, which it does every week. So thank you for watching and listening to the podcast, and that's the tea.
That's it for this episode of Spill the Tea. If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for more candid conversations. Got a burning question or topic you want us to cover? Slide into our DMs. We're always here to spill the tea. Follow us on socials at the Spill the Tea pod, at Will Nash on Air, and at Sex Off the Pedestal.